I shivered to life as I felt myself floating on my back, opening my eyes slowly. I was greeted with a million pinpricks of light, surrounding a bright white orb in the sky. I searched my mind for the answer as to why it seemed so familiar, closing my eyes again as I drifted into the memories, letting all of it come back into focus. It was late while we were traveling to one of the tall white spires that reached above the cloud layer. It was only 2 days into our journey from Hoofington, and we decided it would be the safest to spend the night around it, so we camped and relaxed after a long day on the road. The night was calm, and we all sat around the fire, watching it dance in the warm summer breeze. Mother had curled up under her blanket as the 2 guards ate and got drunk. The trader slowly got to his hooves and walked over to me. "I want to show you something no one else gets to see in the wasteland." The old man whispered to me, "It's more valuable than all the items on this wagon." He led me to the tall spire, pressing himself to the side while looking up and telling me to do the same. Whispering so softly I could barely hear him, he spoke as we pressed next to the building. "This is a secret, so you can't tell any pony else, not even your mother. Do you promise?" As I looked up, I nodded. I could see through the dark, thick clouds that blocked out the sky. The sides of the tower were almost pressing against the oppressive layers, pressing them away. As I looked up, I could see the tiny points of light twinkling and shining down on us, and it instantly became the second most amazing sight I'd ever beheld. It was stunning at how beautifully peaceful it seemed. "Now, if you pray to Luna, you might be able to see her," he had told me. "She's shy to us ground ponies, and doesn't come to see us very often, but you need to ask her really, really nicely for her to show herself. Can you do that for me?" I opened my eyes again, staring out at the black sea that I floated in, at the large white sphere. The shadow of a unicorn mare now shone lightly on it. The mane of hers flowed on its surface. "Luna, forgive me," I said, as I reached my hoof up to her, closing my eyes and slipping away into yet another memory. "Look, I know what you mean, well, but you can't just set me up on a double date like this," I had complained. Sky was sitting sadly in a fancy pre-war red dress, as we argued inside the hotel room we had rented in Tenpony. "Why not?" she yelled back, her eyes filled with sadness. "It's been 2 years, Backlash. You need to let him go." "Why should I?" I had screamed, as I knocked over the coffee table. "I can't lose anyone again. I won't." "I won't just sit here and watch you pass up the chance to be happy again," Sky said as she hugged me softly. "I can't stand to see you so lonely anymore." "I'm so sorry about Sprocket." I had collapsed and lay on the floor for the rest of the night, paralyzed in sorrow. Maybe if I didn't show you, if I had kept my promise. Opening my eyes to the sea of stars, the moon no longer held the shadow of the mare. I laid with a sigh as I felt myself start to sink, pulling me down into the dark depths while the stars started to blink out, until only the moon remained. It slowly growing dim as well. I could feel myself beginning to sink away, until the once bright moon looked only like another star in the sky. "Oh, Luna! Fuck, it hurts!" I screamed and thrashed on the floor as both Carlotta and Sky were holding me down. I came back into a world of pain as my eyes shot open to see Harmony. She was applying a tourniquet to my right foreleg above where my hoof should have been, cinching it down tight. "Hold him still, or he'll bleed out!" Harmony's voice called out as my vision faded again temporarily. The needle from a Med-X, Sky just injected, shining in the vault's bright fluorescent light. My muscles relaxed, even when I tried to flail. I screamed out and shut my eyes tightly. The pain-killing drug just wasn't going to cut it. "Hand me a bottle of the Wild Pegasus," she yelled as I whimpered, my leg feeling like it was being ripped apart muscle by muscle. "Now, hold him tightly." I felt as the bottleneck was shoved into my mouth, and choked down the burning drink, trying not to breathe it in before the pain dulled down and I felt really heavy. The pain went away completely, replaced by an odd fuzziness, as I was surprised at the thought of how good I felt all of a sudden. I felt the soft prick of a needle slide into my leg before I regretted ever thinking that. My leg felt like it was exploding. The pain was somehow worse than before, even though the drugs and the whiskey. It hurt so bad that I wanted to beat my head into the floor just to stop the pain. But after that was an eternity. The pain subsided, and I felt better than before. Opening my eyes, I watched as Harmony poured the rest of the alcohol over my hairless hoof, letting the cooling liquid flow over it. He needs to take it easy on his new hoof. The Hydra just reforms old parts, but the wear it had before, it's going to be weak until the muscles strengthen up a bit, she said, as she washed her bloody muzzle and hooves off in a small bucket. He's lucky we keep it stocked up here in case there was an accident on one of the rocks. I laughed softly on the floor as the feeling of the Med-X and whiskey hit me again, hard, setting my vision into a whirling series of colorful lines. I love you guys, is what I tried to say, but it didn't sound right to me as it came out of my muzzle, so I tried to say it again. I felt as Carlotta shut my muzzle forcefully with her claws as I giggled out from around it. I wrapped my hooves around her neck and pulled her into a hug. I know she spoke in angry, slurred words, but I couldn't make them out before I passed out again. I didn't know how long I drifted between consciousness, but I assumed it was at least 6 or 7 hours. When I could finally sit up, the others had gone to bed, leaving me to sit in silence alone. I looked down over my new hoof, remarking how odd the fur looked as it cut off at the angle my original had been cut from. I looked over the rest of myself, noting the healed scars of nearly 24 separate lacerations. As I sat there, I thought I might as well listen to the audio logs that Sky had found in Whiny, and with a grunt, I slipped into Sats. I looked over and found the lone audio log titled, To My Dear Rose. I leave this message to you, Rose Thorn. Your mother and I just received our emergency recall signals on our pip-bucks, telling us to head to Stable 2. We didn't think much of it until the radio reported that Cloudsdale is gone. The Pegasi are nowhere to be seen, and that the end is really upon us. I'm leaving this message here so that if you ever make it back from Salt Cube City, you can know where we went. There's a sudden soft roar, slowly growing louder and shaking the windows in the background. Oh, Celestia, that was in Ponyville. The voice of a mare is softly crying in the background. No, don't cry, Tulip. I'm sure she'll be fine. We just need to go somewhere else and wait for her. Oh, Rose, I'm so sorry. We love you. The audio log cut out abruptly. I dropped into Sats and lay there, thinking about how terrifying it must have been to watch what happened. I was depressing myself as I thought about how Rose would probably never even got that message. The sad 120-year-old story, whose happy ending never came. I felt my ear twitch, breaking my thought process as I reached up to scratch it. There was a knock on the steel vault door, startling me to my hooves. Even as I flavored it lightly, I felt my new hoof strain to hold me up as I limped over to the door. Brass, is that you? I yelled, both making my head throb and startling everyone else awake. Yeah, I heard his voice boom through the door. All clear up top. You can open the door now. I hoofed the big button on the wall and stood back as the door opened slowly. Guess who decided to up and become a ghoul as well? Brass said, and strode in with a charred black stallion slumped over his back, dumping him on the floor before turning his guns on him. Fed him some rat away while he was out. I figured that it probably would make him weak enough he couldn't run. The stallion coughed up a glob of deep crimson as he sat up, his blue eyes the only bright feature left on his body. Bravo on the excellent show of force. Killed everyone but me out there. The familiar voice spoke out. We're not so different, you know, brother. Before I could even say anything, Harmony pushed past us, towards the subdued ghoul. "Where's the detonator?" She pressed her master's hoof against his side. Crankshaft just coughed out a laugh. "Where is it?" "I'll never tell you, you slave bitch." He spat in her face as he writhed under her hoof. Harmony grunted and leaned forward, pressing down on him until he started to scream. "Okay, I'll talk. Celestia, stop her!" She leaned back, letting him catch his breath. "It's in the safe in the barn. The key is taped under it. Just don't hurt me anymore." He stared up at her with wide, pleading eyes as she smiled and put her hoof on his shoulder, leaning forward this time with all her weight as he screamed out again. A series of loud snaps and pops emanated from Crankshaft's back at midsection as she stepped on him, leading the other slaves upstairs. "You bitch! I can't feel my legs!" He screamed in anger from the floor. His rage-filled eyes and words seemed almost unimportant from down there. "I'll fucking kill you!" Going to gnaw her face off? Give up already. Scar replied with a soft laugh. "You deserve worse than this, you son of a bitch." His face seemed to twitch and seethe at that comment, before curling into a wide grin. "Backlash. Are you really going to let your little whore insult mother like that?" he said with a wide smile, arcing his neck up as high as he could. I could tell from his words he was desperately trying to grasp at any topic to rile us up. The last attempt of a truly broken stallion. My words were soft. I wouldn't let him break me. She was there for me when Mom died. She was more of a sister to me than all those years than you will ever be my brother. As far as I'm concerned, my brother died the day he left us to pursue his own selfish ambitions. I said, leaning down close to him. "You don't think I regret that day? You never made a mistake like that?" he said as he flapped his head back down. "Tell me again. You said it was your fault Mother died? What were you doing that put you in such danger as to force our mother to save you?" His words cut deep, but I couldn't kill him. I needed to let this bastard suffer. Death was a gift, and I would not bring him it. Brass stepped towards him and pushed me back. "You know, as a ghoul you don't have to eat. So when we leave you here in this vault, you'll continue to lay here, fully aware and alone." He spoke as he twisted his helmet off, levitating it over before dumping a small piece of metal out onto Crankshaft's chest, making my pip-buck click slowly. "I picked this up after my change, but I think you'll need it more. The radiation will keep you alive, but won't fix your back. You will never walk again." Brass leaned down close and smiled. "This room will be your own personal hell, so close to ending it all, but no means to carry it out." I tapped on Brass's shoulder to get his attention. "What do you mean by that? We're taking all of this awesome stuff with us," I said as I looked over the numerous crates. After a few hours, we had loaded the Skycar up with as much ordnance as possible before strapping Carlotta in. She had recovered a fair bit from the vault, with the help of a few healing potions, and could actually carry all the things again. Harmony suggested that we take the other slaves back to Manhattan first, having Brass, her, and I stay back for a return trip with the rest of the crates. "You keep my sister alive. You hear?" I whispered to Carlotta, as she rolled her eyes with the same exasperated sigh she always loves to give. "It's only a few hours. We'll be back in the morning for you and the rest of the stuff. I'm more worried that you'll find a way to get yourself killed before then." She took off with that, dragging the heavy Skycar behind her slowly in the air. I turned and gave Skyline a long hug before she had to go and catch up, streaking off out of the barn and into the horizon as the setting sun dyed it red. I turned around to walk out, but inadvertently smacked my muzzle right against Harmony's flank as she stood looking into the open safe, making both of us jump. "Oh my, Celestia, I'm sorry." I blushed as I backed away, my eyes darting up to see a smile drawing across her face. "What are you, looking for in there?" It's fine. I'm a bigger gal than most, so I shouldn't be hard to miss. She chuckled as she leaned into the safe, grabbing a small piece of paper in her mouth, dropping it into one of the crates near us. I was wondering what this was. I don't know what it means or if it's important and expensive enough to take. I walked over to it, reading over the small sheet and noticing it seemed to be a list of chemical compounds required to make the drug Party Time Menthols. It would bring a fairly high price to the right buyer, but the wasteland already had a huge problem with addicts as it was. Not to mention, some of the chemicals were hard to find and would make it an expensive drug. I took the note in my mouth and placed it back in the safe. It's not anything useful. Just lock it back up, and let's find Brass to help you get that big box out of the basement, I said, as I shrugged. The large, steel-laden wooden box was apparently so heavy Brass and Harmony had to take 3 20-minute breaks just to get it out of the front double doors. 2 of those times we were also making sure that they didn't kill Crankshaft as he insulted us on the floor. Once it was in the corner of the barn, I hooved at the back black box, unsurprised when it gave me a soft prick. The small rectangular metal box made a high-pitched whine before releasing the steel straps and dropping to the ground with a crash. I rubbed my hooves together in anticipation, hoping for a shiny new Protect-A-Pony or some amazing medical machine that would put Dr. Fitz in my debt for the rest of his life. I drug the cables off the box and used the Marauder's tire iron to pry open the box. I stared inside of my prize, only to be confused. It seemed to be a multifaceted weapon, an object that sat on a pedestal. In the center of the clear object was a swirling mass of colored gases. To be honest, I was disappointed. "What is it?" Brass said as he stared at it, reaching out to touch it before Harmony smacked his hoof away. "It's a weapon," she said sternly as she stared at him. "And how do you know that?" he replied, more than just a little annoyed. "Because it was in the back of a room full of other weapons," she stated, very matter-of-factly. I shrugged and couldn't beat that logic before picking the wooden crate lid back up and sealing the shimmering object. "Well, I've seen a lot of weapons, but never anything like that," Brass remarked as we left the barn and headed inside. "I don't know how we're going to transport it, though." "We won't," I said, as we came in through the front doors. "Honestly, I have no idea what it does, or what it's worth, so we'll leave it." I let out a yawn and latched the door shut before trotting over to the living room, flipping the overturned couch off the window with a loud bang. "Anyway, I want to relax a bit before bed. Got any more of that whiskey laying around?" Harmony nodded and trotted off to the kitchen, leaving Brass and I in the living room. "Thanks. For not killing Crankshaft, I mean," I said to Brass as he started to remove his suit using his telekinesis, laying the black armor out against the wall piece by piece. I sighed and stepped out of the hind boots and set them down with a thud. He looked bigger than before he became a ghoul. Not anywhere near an adult-sized stallion, but bigger nonetheless. I wondered to myself if the radiation was actually making him grow. "Look, you were right. I'm not a different stallion than before." He walked over and jumped up next to me on the couch, sighing as a strand of his green hair fell out and landed between us. "But I'm not as useless as you think I am." "Useless?" I said as I flailed my hooves. "You are positively the most badass Steel Ranger I've ever met. What makes you think that's how we viewed you?" Brass looked away and crossed his forehooves on his chest. "Everyone treats me like a colt. I keep telling them I'm just short of my age, but no pony believes me." I snickered at that, not helping by thinking of how true it was. He was damn small-framed. "That's exactly what I'm talking about. I always had to prove myself around home by taking the bigger jobs on base. And that's why I signed up first to—" He trailed off for a moment. "Hey, you made it out when the others didn't. You fought harder and proved tougher than any stallion I've ever known." I raised his chin with my hoof. "You don't ever let some pony tell you that you're weak. If they don't believe you, just come get me. I'll back you up 100%. Brass smiled wide and jumped up to hug me tightly. His flesh was oddly soft and squishy enough that it was slightly unnerving. Harmony came back from the kitchen with a basket full of booze, when she sat down on the floor, staring in confusion between Brass and the set of armor. "Wait, you fit inside there?" she said slowly. "But you move as though the suit fits you perfectly. I don't understand." "Well, you see," Brass started to explain with a long, arduous rhetoric that I don't remember because I reached out for a bottle of Stalingrad's finest and popped the top, letting the rest of the night run into a series of blurs. I didn't drink normally, because I'm told I become a completely rowdy party pony. I even had once spent an entire month's earnings in Paradise because I took them up on their offer for a free first drink. Also, I'm pretty sure that Skyline is only still angry about that because I gave her mare friend of the time a lap dance as they were trying to eat together. I must have passed out sometime shortly before being able to make it to the bathroom, because my insides felt like they were trying to murder me in my sleep. It got bad enough. It woke me up while bright sunlight streamed through the hole in the cloud cover. Lucky me. I ran into the glassless window of the upstairs bedroom, and right into my eyes. As I tried to cover my face with a hoof, I found it was pinned down. I felt the weight lift off me as the bed shifted suddenly, letting me roll over to stare at the still tired, bright pink eyes of Harmony as she stretched and yawned. "Hey there, you." She smiled and kissed my nose, making my muscles lock up. A hell of a fun ride last night. I might have to stick around to bunk up with you more often. I let out a deep sigh as she got up and strode out of the room, smelling of whiskey and sweat. Oh, Celestia. What the hell did I do last night? Level up. Plus 15 Doctor. You were drunk enough that you proved your points into a skill that's not even around anymore. Now that takes talent. New perk. Rad Max. You're truly a badass warrior of the wastes around when radiation. If you have more than 200 rads, you absorb enough, or of half as much radiation as normal. But below 200, you suck up twice as much.